Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live a little early, Friday, September 1st at 11:13 a.m. Look at this nice little picture. Here, let me remove myself. That's nice. Metaphors, the storm outside or the storm within. So I like to think in terms of metaphors and I think of storms. Clearly, we all see a storm on the horizon, especially this month, September, with student loan repayments starting. Everyone is stretched thin. Everything's going to roll over. How could it not? Directionality is clear. It's not like directionality stops and reverses. Directionality continues until capitulation, and the directionality that we are heading in, that capitulation, is not the fun one. Albeit this is the time in the market where things are finding bottom, but there's a lot of capital destructive forces just screaming from every sector across the planet, every sovereign nation across the planet. The potential for capital destruction is extraordinary. So, what do you think of that? There's folks that are opportunistic. They're like, oh, we can borrow and then sell, and there's like a short position saying the actual function or the how to engage with it rather than what it is. A short position, and you're speculating on price action going to the downside. And there's plenty to be money to be made, gambling, but that's not something we primarily talk about. How we engage with markets, especially in these conditions. I find that kind of way engaging with markets more enjoyable when it's easy, and I'm not fond of taking bets against things. I don't like shorting. So this is how I manage my storm inside, or how I simplify the equation of how I engage with markets. I'm not going to short things, and that's the directionality that everything's heading. Everything looks like it's going to fall apart. And my methodology is simpler. My methodology is basically right now batten down the hatches. Do I have enough cash? Do I have cash for how long? Do I have cash to cover the things that I have planned for next year, 2025 even? If everything gets worse, worse, and worse, am I covered? So that is a way, maybe, obviously to simplify things, but obviously I come at that statement from a relative position of luxury, and I appreciate the realities that many folks encounter. Many folks, from a paycheck to paycheck standpoint, and or even a savings standpoint, are just completely crushed. But that's the story we try and tell. And if anything, I hope this story is a goal. And I have my goals from where I want to be relative to my position. And obviously, folks can look at my position and see it as a goal as well. And these are good thoughts. These are uh, these are optimistic thoughts, and we should continue to think like this, no matter what that storm looks like on the horizon. Now, suffice it to say, maybe it brings other people comfort. It surely does me. I'm quite well structured. Have I experienced significant capital loss? Sure. Do I have liquid capital that could finance clearly things on the monthly and certainly things heading into the end of the year? And I have preparations and capital available for next year, end of next year. So I have pretty much the next year and a half of my life planned out financially. And right now I'm trying to get a sense of where things are going to head in 2025. That's my mentality. And my expectation in the short term, as we've talked about, it's imperative for expectations to be reasonable. And clearly, if your expectations are exceeded in a positive way, that's only a good thing. So my expectation is continued pressure, downward pressure, depreciation, liquidation. Why? Because in the end of the day, do you have enough capital to finance your needs when you go to a store? So that's just forced selling. And that's exactly what we see in markets. That's exactly why we see Bitcoin and Ethereum doing what it's doing. Complete rejection of the 200 weekly. It was literally someone provided exit liquidity based on buy the news, sell the event type stuff. And this is precarious situation technically. Obviously, we did double top on the 200 SMA back in February of 23, so we're below it again. And there is a 50 SMA on support, weekly support. Ethereum looks much healthier, albeit not much. It's in precarious situation. 50, it's above the 200 weekly as well as the 50 weekly, but it's right on the line, as you can obviously see there. Um, so generally, this structure looks much better. These are higher lows. Bitcoin has somewhat of an inverse head and shoulders, and it is higher lows as well. But that's why you're not going to get the data or the information or the sentiment, the comfort looking at those charts. Those don't tell you the direction of markets. What tells you the direction of markets is the global financial condition, particularly with regard to dollars and bonds. Look at bonds today. Look at that, 1.73%, 1.87% on the 30. Don't have to go to the short end. That's controlled by the Fed, more or less. But this is a precarious situation if we start to see a breakout towards 5%. We're at remarkable numbers with regard to bond yields, considering where we came from, obviously. Historically, they're still relatively low, but precarious financial conditions. Um, it's basically the yen putting a lot of pressure. The euro has structurally depreciated significantly, but that's clearly not the case with the yen or the yuan. Yuan obviously pushed up much more than even the yen. But with regard to the DXY, clearly the major contributor is the yen, giving its appreciative presentation here of late. We obviously want to see what I've spoken about on Twitter, a close below 103.427. We pushed back to 104.135 earlier today. We were below 103.427, but as the bond market sells off, strengthens the dollar. Obviously, the bonds are being sold to buy dollars. Why? To buy shit that costs dollars. Dollar depreciate, dollar denominated. Everything's freaking dollar denominated still. That's why there's such a correlation between bond sell-off and dollar up yields. There's a proportional relationship between yields and dollar value, relative dollar value, that is. So this is not such a good situation. 7 hours, 39 minutes left. Holding as resistance is the 50 SMA on the weekly. What we want to see is rejection here. I'd love to see a bullish engulfing. That's why I got that green line at 103.427. 7 hours, maybe it's possible. But if this closes at, I mean, look, you almost got like a dragonfly doji. If it closes pretty much where it opened, that's a hell of a precarious candle. Connotations of overtones of a hanging man, maybe. In which case, you're literally stuck in limbo, trying to wait a week or two for some follow-up candles to see what the hell it does. You start to see a higher high and a breach of the 50 SMA on the weekly. That is directionality that's indicating we're going to have further stress in markets as the dollar is in demand. And when the dollar is in demand, sovereigns are selling bonds, but the general public, Gen Pop, is selling anything they could get their hands on. Forced selling. And momentum obviously creates forced selling as well. If the prevailing sentiment is that everything's going to depreciate, people want to exit before it depreciates. And obviously the aggregate the buy and sell pressure is what manifests these charts. So if the dollar continues going up around the world, Gen Pop has to sell shit in order to get more expensive dollars. So they kind of want to sell things before the dollar continues to get more expensive so they can buy the dollar at a cheaper price. That's the deal. So we're looking at the bond market to get a sense of what sovereign nations around the world are doing, but we look at crypto markets, liquid markets, equity markets to get a sense of what Gen Pop's doing in response to the dollar, and we're going to see depreciation, especially if this thing continues its prevailing directionality. Nice support on the TWAP of the weekly, S&P 500 obviously. I don't know where the hell it's heading with regard to the monthly chart. TWAP is way below at 41.34. We don't need to go out to the 6 month or the 12 month here for now. You know, I guess the point of the stream today is I got to keep it short, but the storm, emotions, maintaining rationality. Make sure you have enough cash. Make sure that this is not a time to necessarily be thinking about over allocation or allocation in general at all. It's nice to have assets. Those assets expect to depreciate. You don't know where bottom is. I look forward to the Prisma drop. I will consider an LP position depending on what kind of yields are available. Anytime you get a drop and you have half your LP position offered to you, you could always consider the LP, that's the extent of my consideration at this time. I have no intention of liquidating. That's not in my mind at this point. I don't need to capitalize. I don't need that right now. I'm not a forced seller. Obviously attracted a significant amount of TVL. It's going to positively contribute to the recycling of those units. As we all know that story, they're going to recycle and sterilize excess supply of whatever protocol they are accumulating. And there's a couple of them coming online, and Liquis is coming online with regard to Bunny. There's great technological offerings coming online in the short term. So that's nice to see. That's comforting. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a financial opportunity at hand. So be considerate, be rational. And the rational person, the rational mental exercise requires us to observe these innovations coming online. It's comforting. It's exciting to see progress. These systems are iterating. Um, that's about it. I don't think there's any questions today. It's a Friday. Everyone feels a little dejected because this thing really popped below the 200 on the weekly very nicely. Complete retrace of the move when we had our news this week, and still support at 24,000. Support. What have I always said? Support is an expression of weakness. Now, bear in mind, from a monthly perspective, it was a breakout above the TWAP, and technically we haven't even retested it. So you get down to 24,000, still in an uptrend. Time horizon is the most difficult thing for persons to digest. They're like, oh, 23,000, it's failing, it's going down. All right, look, it's higher low. That's pretty cool. Same thing from, even more so from an Ethereum standpoint. We're literally on the monthly TWAP. Bitcoin has to fall a fair amount to get to the monthly TWAP. But Ethereum is literally sitting on it. Interesting differences in structure. From a technical standpoint, I'm more comfortable with Ethereum with regard to a cash position, albeit that does not discount the significance of Bitcoin being an important component, diversify from Ethereum, specifically with regard to the cash position. Y'all folks know I've talked recently about me considering these assets part of the cash position, obviously volatile. I'm paying a volatility premium to deal with or get rid of counterparty risk. I don't trust these fuckers out there in TradFi. James, killing it with the thumbnails lately. I have fun with my mid-journey. Joe, I'm holding Velodrome, not happy about Aerodrome, vamping liquidity for my position, but Velodrome has the bigger federation supporting it for now, so I'm going to hold through this dip until something changes. I don't think we could say they're federations, and I know they're popular protocols, but who's accumulating? Yes, obviously there's capex deployed to finance rentals on the respective platform, but who's sterilizing supply? And this is something that's absent from balance of federation, Aura as well. Who's sterilizing Aura? What protocol is making a wrapped Aura and incentivizing it to have its circulating supply disrupted? So please take that, keep that in mind with regard to uh, uh, portfolio balance, position size, so on and so forth. Without sterilization, anything that's increasing supply is going to have a significant depreciative pressure on it. And that's generally why I've sized my positions accordingly. I mean, look at the sterilizers there that exist for the curve protocol, base protocol. There's more coming online. Prisma literally just came online. So I am forced to have the rational conclusion that that is a more stable liquidity financing regime. And obviously, if things get bad enough, that could also be put, its existentiality can be put into jeopardy. Even a strong federation that has a suite of sterilizing third parties. But anything that's weaker, that has, when I say weaker, I mean with regard to the extent of sterilizing third parties in play, there's a greater likelihood of depreciation. And that's not something I would overexpose to. So I guess that everything I just said reduces to portfolio size and position, portfolio composition and position size. Hope that helps. Sterilizers. So every day there's emissions. There's more and more velo or aero or CRV or bow or aura. They're emitting, they're creating and putting it into circulation. Inflation. So the only way to manage that and control that is third parties that are buying it, not people, third parties, protocols, and that is what I find most interesting with regard to what has emerged with curve and balancer. So obviously, Aura sterilizes excess bow with its Aura bow. It incentivizes people to deposit bow, removing that bow from circulation, even though bow is being used to finance all the activity on balancer. The same thing with curve and convex. CVX CRV pays people, incentivizes people to lock CRV. That CRV is permanently locked, removed from circulation. And that removing from circulation sterilizes excess bow that is emitted on the daily, excess curve that is emitted on the daily. So who is removing the emitted velo and arrow for that matter? So unless there's a protocol, a third party that's doing that intentionally, the point of the protocol, point of convex is to remove excess curve from circulating supply. That's the whole point of it. And if I don't see those protocols, I don't see a monetary policy. Not really. That's probably not the best way to describe it. But I don't see that circular feedback loop of currency flows: creation, sterilization, incentivization, and I don't see the components of a multi-protocol system that hits all the characteristics that I really think is one of the few innovations of the crypto markets. Um, it's not like we've seen anything like this in traditional finance. We've seen things like this between countries and currencies between countries. It's literally the analogy of the U.S. dollar post 71 and the petrodollar. So either it has third-party sterilizers or it doesn't. Does anyone locking up to participate in bribe opportunity sterilize supply? To a degree. But here's the thing. They're not deterministic. They're opportunistic. So retail participants, people, have a capacity to liquidate. Convex does not have a capacity to liquidate its CVX CRV position. It cannot, it's permanently locked. So the last thing I trust is humans. Humans are subjective. They have opinion. They have interest and desires. They're opportunistic. CVX CRV, the CRV that is locked, is not opportunistic. It's deterministic. It cannot be unlocked based on the design of the software protocol and the smart contracts that are immutable. And that is what makes all the difference with regard to trust and comfort. I don't have to trust the CVX CRV contract that it cannot liquidate the controlled CRV supply. I trust that the contract is going to execute as it has been coded to permanently lock CRV. So this all plays into comfort and finding your way of allowing time to pass and trust. Without trust, it is very difficult to let time pass. I don't trust people to disrupt circulating supply. I trust software and protocols that aren't dependent on people making subjective decisions. Hope that helps. Now, bear in mind, in bullish conditions, positive sum game and liquidity flows in. Sure, why would people disrupt circulating supply and sterilize supply? Opportunity. People are opportunistic. Software, especially Ethereum contracts, are deterministic. That's the difference. Drew, third parties that sterilize, where do they get their yield for the stakers? So obviously it gets cyclical. So we could draw a fair amount of experience from what Frax does and how they generate their revenue, but all economics is cyclical and is dependent on flows, circular flows. So third parties, for instance, a lot of the reason Convex has done what it's done is because of CVX. It is deploying an incentive regime. Humans that are opportunistic respond to incentives. Humans respond opportunistically when that incentive can be thought of as income. And that means at some point someone needs to consume CVX. And who's done that? Frax to a great degree. And how did Frax accumulate CVX? Stablecoin LPs. So they generate revenue by the churn, the velocity of dollar liabilities through the crypto markets, and they use that to disrupt CVX circulating supply. So you're never going to find an end, but what you want to look for is the incentives to disrupt circulating supply, and you want to eliminate the trust from the equation and focus on the concept of determinism, because that's the only thing that has the potential to alleviate trust. Oh, yeah, this is a Hero shirt on. We got the swag this week. So Hero has these types of overtones. It's one of the few, but obviously it's a very, very different market on Solana. Many different considerations as compared to mainnet. It's a micro proto emerging market as I define it. So that is imperative to consider. So I quite appreciate what's being built. I quite appreciate the framework and the structure of the way the protocols are interacting with their base layer that Hero Network created. Um, and where it heads from here, I don't know. But guess what? I sized the position accordingly. None of these smaller positions are primary position sizes. They're marginal in the structure of the portfolio. The primary position sizes must be the things that are highly likely to survive. And of that, there are very few in all of these crypto markets. Clearly Ethereum and Bitcoin, but those aren't investments. Those are the cash position. If I have money in Ethereum and I need to spend it because my income from work pays the monthly bills, but if I have my cash in Ethereum and I need to spend it because I want to do a modification to the home or I want to pay off a car bill or whatever, I'm going to spend it. And obviously the complexity there is I might want to wait for it to be more favorable with regard to price point. So that introduces complexity managing the cash position. Anyway, that's definitely a digression, but it plays, the point of that is portfolio composition. How much is cash? What is the composition of cash? How much are investments? What are the composition and position sizes of the investments? And guess what? If your investments are producing less cash flow, you adjust your behavior. And if investments producing less cash flow, you might consider liquidating or adjusting position size. It's not necessarily the case that price depreciation invalidates a narrative, but sure, if you need that capital, you liquidate it and add it to the cash position so you could continue to rest well at night that you have enough cash to finance your expenses. Complicated, I know. I guess that was in response to Hero. Point being, I see Hero for my portfolio as a relatively marginal position size uh, in a proto emerging market, but it's rarely the case that I have a high opinion of something that is small nowadays, especially in these very negative sum game conditions. But I like what they're doing. I like what they're building, and that's comforting. It's nice to see good things being done, people doing work from work. We get creation, we are productive, we are value add to these systems and society as a whole. And I see a lot of good creations of late. I look forward to these sterilizers coming online to hopefully provide some price stability to the curve price. And they'll be online. I very much look forward to tapioca as well. That anything deterministic, because Prisma is stated to be deterministic, immutable contracts. So that's comforting. Tapioca, deterministic, immutable, comforting. I don't have to deal with people and trust people to make choices. I have to trust that software is executing the same every single time. Hope that helps. Um, Curve took a good wallop. Where is it? 44.7. Nothing we're going to gain from the technicals. Bearish market conditions, expect continued liquidation. Unlike some other protocols, still haven't reached all-time lows. Wouldn't be surprised to see us push on all-time lows. 30 cents region. Why not? It's not like the directionality spontaneously reverses with regard to liquidity flows into the crypto market versus out of the crypto markets. I expect the trends to continue until something changes. And when it changes, I want front row seats when it does. I think that's the most important takeaway from these prevailing market conditions. It reminds me of times past, especially in 2019. It was just the whole year was just um, boring and melodramatic or just bland. And then boom, the cycle of capital flows started to change, and there you go. And before you know it, the market is off to the races. So I will very much look forward to the turn in the markets. And unlike times past, like earlier for 14, maybe 14, 15, give or take, 2014, 2015, I want front row seats. And that's something I'm guaranteed to have because of my portfolio choices. I'm guaranteed to have front row seats to what the hell plays out with these markets heading into 24, 25. I just zoom out the time horizon. I look forward to where these markets are in 2030. And best part is I'm guaranteed to have assets in 2040, 2030. And the price of those assets, we'll see. But I want to see, and it's impossible for me to exit some of these positions. So no matter how I'm feeling sentiment-wise, that means a lot to me. That I don't have to choose. I can't make a choice. Brings me comfort. Let's wrap it up. It was a quick one today. Friday, September 1st at 11:42 a.m. Thank you all for joining me. Mind the storm, but not necessarily the storm out there. It's the storm within. Manage your emotions, focus on rationality, make good decisions, make sure the cash position is healthy. Cash position is not necessarily what people think it is. And investing, I don't consider Bitcoin and Ethereum investing. I think that is a good takeaway from 2023. In the description, is the most rational community in the entire crypto space. I appreciate everyone in there. Survivors, most certainly. I will see you into next week on a Monday. Y'all have a good one now. Peace.